Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk about the film The Corpse Vanishes, which is an American film produced in 1942 starring Bela Lugosi. The film starts showing some brides who were getting married, and when they were in the church about to get married, they suddenly collapsed and died. And then there was another coincidence around the deaths of the brides, that the corpses of all those brides were stolen and disappeared. At first, nobody could establish any connection between those deaths. But after a while, some people realized that all the brides who passed away, they had a very rare orchid with them. And the scent of this orchid put them in a state of fainting that was very similar to death. And then the audience see that all those brides, they received this orchid of a crazy scientist, Dr. Lawrence, who was the same person who stole the corpses of those brides, because he had a laboratory at home and he extracted the body fluids of those brides to make his old wife becomes young again, at least in appearance. And Dr. Lawrence, he had three servants at home, an elderly woman and her two sons. And they had very scary appearances, and Dr. Lawrence really maltreated his servants very much. And one of them was a dwarf, and the other one seemed to have some problems, some kind of trouble. And we must remember that in classic era, there was lots of insensitivity compared with nowadays standards to deal with those subjects. So the appearance of people, nationalities, religion, ethnicity, and all that, it was portrayed in a very insulting and offensive way sometimes. So this is how they show it. It was shown at the time. And he was very brutal with his employees. Then a reporter called Patricia Hunter, she started to be interested in investigate what was causing all those deaths. She figured out that it was the orchids that were killing the brides, and she decided to investigate who could be sending those orchids to the brides. And then she was referred to Dr. Lawrence as a specialist in cultivation of orchids. So she went to the house of Dr. Lawrence. At first, it was difficult to her to find someone who could bring her to Dr. Lawrence's house, but then she ended up getting a lift with a young doctor who happened to be to Dr. Lawrence's house, so he could deal with some other medical problems of the family. So when Patricia Hunter arrived at the mansion, she had a terrible reception by Dr. Lawrence's wife, who didn't like her presence there. Dr. Lawrence at first was nice and kind because he was trying to foolish Patricia Hunt and the young doctor by being kind and so on. But then she asked for an interview on orchids. Dr. Lawrence felt distrustful and said that he wouldn't give any interview. When Patricia Hunter was about to leave to stay overnight in a hotel, there was a very strong storm in the city and she couldn't leave the house. So both her and the young doctor had to spend the night in Dr. Lawrence's mansion. And of course, it was a very weird night, especially for Patricia Hunter, and the other servants, the two male servants, went to her bedroom. Even Dr. Lawrence went to her bedroom while she was sleeping. She found out a secret passage in the wardrobe. Then she ended up in the basement of the mansion. She saw some weird things there, like a laboratory, the corpses of two brides. And then, when we think it was enough, we can see that one of the male servants went to the basement too, chasing Patricia Hunter. And then Dr. Lawrence decided to kill his servant right there, with Patricia Hunter being the witness of all that. And then she returned to her bedroom, and she said on the following day everything that she had seen. Dr. Lawrence denied everything, and the young doctor, she talked to him during the night, told him what she had seen, but Dr. Lawrence hypnotized the young doctor, so he denied seeing everything. However, Patricia Hunter went to her newspaper, told everything to her boss, and she contacted the young doctor, who had remembered everything after a while. Then she had found an orchid in her bedroom. She brought that to her boss. The young doctor told he had seen the same things, and then they started to investigate. So, Patricia Hunter and her boss and the young doctor, they had the idea of staging a fake marriage with plenty of policemen around watching the place so they could catch Dr. Lawrence. However, it seemed everything would be fine. However, Dr. Lawrence got to talk alone with Patricia, pretending he was the reverend of the marriage, and he put chloroform on her mouth. She fainted, and then he got to bring her, while she was fainted, to his mansion, so he would also use her body fluids to make his wife younger. However, in the middle of the chasing, because the police was chasing Dr. Lawrence while he was bringing the corpse, another of his male servants, the dwarf, he fell out of the car, he was shot, and Dr. Lawrence left him there to die. And when he returned home, the elderly woman, who was the mother of the two male servants, she realized that Dr. Lawrence had killed both of her sons. And she became very angry and upset. And when Dr. Lawrence was about to use the body fluids of Patricia Hunter, the elderly maid stabbed him on the back. And then he strangled her. But while she was dying in agony, she got to stab Dr. Lawrence's wife too. And then she passed away. Both Dr. Lawrence and his wife passed away. Patricia Hunter was still fainted, but then at this very moment, the police arrived and she was saved. And then in the end of the film, she's shown getting married to the young doctor, and then it was a safe marriage because Dr. Lawrence was no longer alive. So this is a very old film, and the way the horror plot is devised is very old-fashioned. Sometimes it's insulting in some of its depictions. It has some stereotypes and exaggerations that don't scare anyone, but this film didn't really age well. However, it's interesting because you can see the acting of an icon of cinema, which is Bela Lugosi, and you can have an idea how old horror films were produced. It's not a classic of world cinema. It's a short film. It's just around 65 minutes long, and it's interesting to see. Even though, of course, it has its failures, its problems, but I think you are going to like this. And Bela Lugosi is a classic. He was famous for his characterization of Dracula around